Gavin Newsom has decided, as the governor of California, Wall Street Journal piece today, Clay, naming him as the leader of the opposition, right? That this is how he's trying to position himself, at least. And Gavin Newsom gave a speech last night, which I think was very clearly directed at that outcome of, Gavin Newsom is now the premier Democrat in America standing against Trump. Problem is, I think the politics of this are far more treacherous nationally, not in California, sure, but nationally for Gavin Newsom than maybe he even realizes. But here he is. You knew this was coming, that the emotional blackmail, the, oh my gosh, these are the best people that are being arrested. Why is he allowing this? This is cut 4. Gavin Newsom addressed California, really addressed the nation last night. Play it.
Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe.
I don't think anyone's going to deport Gavin Newsom. Okay, this "none of us are safe" thing is absurd. I also think, Clay, that it's very clear, given what the Biden administration did, you can't, that 10 million number, they can't run from that. And everyone knows, okay, so you guys, when you're in charge, the Democrats are in charge, the laws, all of a sudden, the same laws that bind us in so many different ways that we may or may not agree with, right? Depends on what you're talking about. Those same laws include laws on immigration and on the illegal presence that is unfortunately far too common all across this country. When Gavin Newsom says this stuff and he goes, they're arresting dishwashers, washers, etc., a lot of people say, well, are they illegal? And if they are, the answer is, okay, then that's the law.
Yeah, and to me, this is not even about ICE or the raids or anything else. I think Gavin Newsom, who is a calculated guy, has made the decision, this is my way to launch my 2028 presidential campaign. And so, remember, by January of 2027, there will be a full-on presidential campaign underway. Iowa, New Hampshire, January, February 2028. I know it sounds like it's a long time away, but all of these guys are going to be raising money in the next 18 months so that when they announce right after the midterms in January of 2027, heck, remember Trump himself announced in November of 2022 that he was going to be running for re-election, and DeSantis really took it on the chin because he didn't announce until May of 2023 that he was running, and they tried to hold out for the Florida legislative session to be over, and Trump identified DeSantis as the only contender and basically started throwing punches at him immediately. And DeSantis waited a long time to respond, and by the time he did, it was over. Now, I don't know, once the raid happened on Mar-a-Lago in August of 22, if I'm remembering the chronology correctly, I don't know that anybody could have beaten Trump to be the nominee. But I think that that the clear decision made by Newsom here is, I'm going to run anti-Trump, which is positive in the Democrat primary. This is the best way for me to distinguish myself. Here's the challenge. Gavin Newsom thinks that Americans still look to California and see it as an aspirational goal. The problem is most people don't see it that way anymore. And you've talked about this, and I grew up in the same era that you did, Buck, where California in the 90s was a place that everybody wanted to be. California in the early 2000s was a place that everybody wanted to be. I think running as I'm going to make America more like California is a disaster. And this is one thing that I think Ron DeSantis was right about. And if we had gotten DeSantis versus Newsom in 2024, I think that DeSantis would have won comfortably. And if we get DeSantis versus Newsom in 2028, I think that Ron DeSantis would win comfortably. America doesn't want itself to look like California. And I think that Gavin Newsom is living a generation behind in the way that he believes America sees his state. That's, to me, what stands out here.
I also think that they have done a very poor job of opposing Trump in a way that would bring over people who don't already hate Trump, right? I mean, if you're trying to win over anybody who hasn't been anti-Trump all along, they're all the stuff that they're saying about this, I think, is creating a bigger problem for them in a lot of ways. Here's an example. Cuomo, who may be the next governor of New York City. This is cut 29. This is now going over to New York. I'm going to say mayor
yeah.
of New York City. Former governor of New York, mayor of New York City. Although this other guy, we'll talk to our New York experts here later on about this, the Democrat primary. But here is the former governor of New York saying something that I think you all need to hear. This goes into the diversity is our strength situation. Play 29.
We are the capital of diversity. 180 languages spoken in our school system. 180 different languages, people from all across the world. That makes us stronger, not weaker.
That is actually not a good thing, Clay. It does not make... Now, think about this. I understand people say, oh, but Buck, people from all over the world, isn't it so amazing? English as a second language instruction is a huge problem in a lot of public schools, an enormous drain on resources, and the kids who speak English are having a tough enough time getting to proficiency. You're bringing kids from all over the world who come from non-English. I'm not talking about parents who show up who speak English. I'm talking about people whose parents speak very little, if any, English, or on public assistance of some kind, which we know they can get in New York. We know they can get in California. Now they're in the school system, and now you're trying to teach them the skills and particularly, the language skills necessary to operate at 5th grade, 8th grade, 2nd grade, high school, whatever it may be, enormously slows down the rest of the class, enormously obstructs and costs more in learning. But this is the thing. 180 languages are spoken. One thing that I want the Trump, and maybe we can bring this up tomorrow, English is the national language. English as the national language. Full stop. And I live in South Florida. I got to tell you, I love my South Florida, but we need more English as the national language down there too. This is something that unites us all. How can you understand the law, truly understand the law in this country, if you don't speak English?
You can't. And I mean, I would just go back to the biblical story of the Tower of Babel. I mean, the goal of building a great building in the Bible was destroyed by the number of languages that suddenly everybody had to speak. And this is why banal commentary like diversity is our strength is actually not true, right? And what I mean by that is diversity of thought is a strength. But in order to communicate that diversity of thought, you have to be able to speak a common language. So in order to have diversity as a strength, there has to be an agreement on its baseline foundational levels that allow the communication to take place. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have kids learning English. I think the problem that you're speaking of, Buck, is there are a lot of people who come to America and aren't bothering to learn English. They aren't trying to assimilate in some way to speak with the larger community around them. And 180 different languages, how in the world can a public school accommodate that kind of diversity of language when it comes to being able to instruct everybody? And so, look, I understand what Mayor Cuomo is trying to say. Because, by the way, he's running for president in 2028 by winning the mayor's race.
Yeah. But New York City last year had, by their own assessments, 50% proficiency at grade level in reading and math.
Yeah.
So half of New York City public school kids. To be not proficient based on these public school standards means you are way below where you need to be. Remember, proficiency is not, I'm getting an A, I'm good.
Yeah.
Proficiency means you can operate at that level, generally speaking. So to be non-proficient, and so in that situation, you grow up, you're a kid, you're a Latino American kid, you're a Black American kid in poor parts of New York City, and you want more attention, you want more resources, you want a better shot. And then you've got the illegal migrants who are showing up, 150,000 of them in 1 year in New York, I think was the height of it. And then they're all going into the school system Of course, that's going to slow things down. Of course, that's going to make the budgets of the school system more strained than they already are. Or, they get a lot of money, but that's a whole other conversation. And this is basic common sense. What other country, Clay, is prancing around and talking about how great it is, or what other politicians? Maybe some places in Europe that have the same problems we do, but you don't have this anywhere else in the world where they say, you know what, we want as many people as possible to show up here who don't speak the language and know nothing about this place. Let's get that going on.
Well, I think the challenge, too, is you said that they're saying 50% of New York City kids are proficient in reading and math. One of the big problems we have in America today is that we continue to define standards of proficiency down. So it's not only that, let's say 50% of kids are proficient, it's that proficiency in 2024 and 2025 is quite a lot different than proficiency in 1984 and 1985.
And by the way, that's actually the way they shared that statistic. A third of New York City fourth graders last year were proficient in math. 1/3 proficient. 2/3 not proficient, the fourth grade level. And once you get behind at those, look, I don't want to make this just an education discussion, but the point here is people recognize this is why the busing people to Democrat strongholds. Okay, fine. You want to play this game? Go to New York, go to Chicago, let those cities deal with it. This is what Governor Abbott did in Texas. Ron DeSantis did some of this as well in Florida, and it was fine. You take these illegals, yes, They are very much a drain on public resources, and there are people that need those resources who are saying, what's going on here? Why are we devoting this to people who aren't even supposed to be in the country in the first place?
No doubt. And again, I think the sort of the foundational story that's going on here is you're already starting to see aggressive jockeying to win the Democrat primary. Prepare yourselves. If Andrew Cuomo wins the mayorship of New York City, and I think he will, he's going to run for president in 2028. This is his redemption arc. He can say the people of New York forced him out as governor. He's already saying he shouldn't have left, that he didn't actually sexually harass anybody. He's going to say that's in the past. I've done a great job as mayor. I'm just telling you what his argument's going to be. And Gavin Newsom is coming against Trump because he's going to run. They're all setting up for that primary. And you're going to have New York top official, Kathy Hochul's out. Chuck Schumer's not running. Maybe AOC will.
Vote for me. I will no longer grab you around the waist or kiss you strangely on the side of the face.
That is Andrew Cuomo on the show right now. Let me also point this out, Buck. AOC endorsed Andrew Cuomo's top rival. That's the
You want to talk about a guy who holds grudges? Cuomo, famously a nasty infighter in politics who holds a grudge forever.
But don't mistake, that's not because she cares who the mayor of New York City is. That's because she wants to cut Andrew Cuomo's legs out from underneath him, because if he doesn't get elected mayor, she's the forefront New York national candidate in 2028. So sometimes you have to look at not just the text, but the subtext of what's going on. And I think you're already seeing the political jockeying for who is going to run in 28. And by the way, you know what Gavin Newsom will say? He'll say Trump is the worst human who's ever existed in the Democrat primary. If he were the nominee, do you know what he'd try to do? He'd try to say, Trump actually got a lot right when he ran for president in 2028. I had a good relationship with him. That's the pivot that you would immediately see. Sprint to the left, become the Democrat, you get elected anti-Trump, sprint back to the center. Trump had good ideas, but I can implement some of them to appeal to moderate voters. He wasn't actually the Antichrist. He wasn't actually Hitler, but first you have to say he's the Antichrist and he's Hitler. It's so predictable, but I think it's important to not just pay attention to what's being said, look behind what's being said here. Look, we don't talk about it all the time because it's not an easy conversation to have, but the will and trust universe is incredibly important if you don't want to burden your family members when your life passes. So many times out there, you focus on trying to make the life easier for your kids, for your grandkids. And you're doing that because you're working all the time. You're doing that because you are trying to pay off that mortgage. You're trying to set up the college funds. You're trying to do everything you can to help your kids and grandkids. But are you taking care of tying up all the loose ends so your kids and your grandkids don't end up fighting after you pass? The best thing you can do is have a very defined will, a trust document that lays out for the people who you are caring about the most in your life so they don't end up fighting after you're gone, so that you are continuing to think about them even while you are alive today. And a lot of people just don't do that. You work all those hours, you do everything you can to help take care of your family, and then something unexpected passes and they have no idea what you would want, and they end up fighting over what your wishes might be. Why not go ahead and eliminate that from ever being an issue by going to trustandwill.com? They make it simple, affordable. Results will give you peace of mind right now. And your family members, the people you love the most, they have clarity. They're not arguing about what you wanted. You are deciding it for yourself. Again, it's not expensive. It's affordable. And it will help take care of your family, which is what most of you out there are spending your entire lives trying to do. Go, I have this, Buck has this, trustandwill.com. They're experts in creating personalized trusts and wills that will protect your legacy and keep your family from battling after you are gone what you would want to do. Just decide it now, once and for all. Trustandwill.com. That's trustandwill.com.